you. We'll go ahead with the faith that we are live. Good morning. Welcome to King's Report News Hour of the 25th day in the 16th year, leap 6th, second king of Chattanooga, and let's take our tour around the degrees in clear, mostly sunny and humid today. Thunderstorm and spots of 67. And then follows hometown, Chungju, currently 76, mostly cloudy, and getting down to 73 tonight, overcast and very humid with a brief morning shower or two. At the 63 and sunny, 75 for a high today, 75 for a high. Yeah, that's amazing. Less humid with clouds yielding to some sun tonight, 53 for a low, partly cloudy. At the Liberty Rock RV Parking Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 75 and clear right now, but it's getting up to triple digits. It's getting up to 100 degrees today, very warm with sunshine mixed with some clouds. A thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. 75 for a low, turning clear and humid. And at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, currently 82 and partly cloudy. 76 for a low tonight, a shower in places this evening, otherwise mostly cloudy and humid. Tomorrow, a high of 93, a stray thunderstorm in the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy. Not hot and humid. Possible danger of dehydration. Okay. At the Gunma Palace is in Japan, 83 and mostly cloudy. Right now, 75 for a low tonight. Evening thunderstorm in parts of the area. Tomorrow, high of 96, mostly sunny and hot. A thunderstorm in the afternoon. At Ilan in Taiwan, currently 86 and overcast, a low of 76 tonight. Clear skies tomorrow, 94 for a high, some sun, then increasing clouds, a little rain in the afternoon. Okay, now let's take a look at Father's Word. Okay. We're in the book on the Pan-Pacific Providence, and we're in chapter 1, near the end of chapter 1. And I'm not sure what section is, but anyway, very near the end of about almost the final 2 pages of chapter 1. Okay. So our Father describing himself here and describing his motivation for his for fishing, and he says, "I look like a fisherman with a very sort of dark face, gaman, literally a black face, but he doesn't mean exactly black, but sunburned, so that it's a deep brown." And some people may think that if they wait long enough, then I will disappear. So, but what am I doing? So, do you think about what I'm doing? Why I'm doing this kind of thing? It's because 20 million people are starving to death, and I want to liberate them. So so we must not forget the Hudson River, where we shed so much sweat. Yes, I fished with Father on the Hudson River. Well, actually, the Berrytown section of the Hudson River now. So that's one place where he fished. You know, the what was that called? The cove or wherever that place was where we had a net. Um, so anyway, we can stop there. But so Father is focused on saving the lives of the people. He says 20 million people, saving the lives of the people who are starving to death. And there are people who are starving right now in North Korea. And I think Father's very aware of that, and I think he's thinking of those people. Um, from time to time, whenever North Korea has a natural disaster, we hear about starvation. And I know the World Food, what is it? The World, it was a UN agency that gives out food is there, or at least it has been there. I don't know if they're there right now, but the North Korean regime itself continues to starve its population. And that's one reason, by the way, why the population of North Korea is only half as much as, or less than half as much as the South Korea. All right, and let's see now what is going on. And of course, today there is an important event going on, and that is the meeting at the White House between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. I saw one article where they're going to actually make him wear a suit. I don't know. And the press is doing everything it can to uh, show President Trump in the worst light possible, and so they're making it look like Zelensky coming to Washington, and then she sort of calls around and says, "Well, European leaders say, let's go with. Why don't you go with me to Washington?" Uh, so that President Trump can't bully me, or that the European leaders hear that Zelensky is going to Washington, so they call each other up and say, "Hey, let's go with him to give him some moral support while he's there." That's not the way it happened, right? I mean, as Marco Rubio said to one of these commentators who was trying to put it in that light, he said, "Listen, these European leaders, we invited them. We invited them, and we've been working with them for the past months, and we invited them to come to Washington along with Zelensky." So it's not Zelensky that's bringing these people, and it's not Keir Starmer or the other leader, whoever it is that's coming, that sort of volunteered to come. The U.S. has invited them to come. So anyway, they're going to have a meeting today, and it's not clear exactly how many of those European leaders are actually going to be in the Oval Office when this meeting between Trump and Zelensky takes place. I read that some people have been coaching, some leaders have been coaching Zelensky on how to talk to President Trump so he doesn't get kicked out of the Oval Office, basically, the way he was last time. Let's take a look at this story on the Epoch Times. President Donald Trump will welcome Ukrainian. Okay, really? Okay. We'll take your word for it. Welcome. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and European leaders to the White House on Monday to explore paths to end Russia's war in Ukraine. The leaders are expected to discuss thorny issues, including Russian President Vladimir Putin's refusal to agree to a ceasefire, his territorial demands, and potential security guarantees for Kyiv after the war. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is going to be there, and Macron's going to be there. Merz is going to be there. Meloni is going to be there, and the Finnish President, Alexander Stubb, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced that they will be attending the White House meeting. So let's see who's missing. Spain is missing. Spain, I think their attitude is, hey, you know what? We're far enough away from the problem. We really don't need to be there. Interesting that Poland is not here. Interesting, I guess. And Hungary. All right. And the Baltic countries, I would think, would have a pretty big interest in this meeting. But they're not all, they're not, but especially Poland. I'm surprised that Poland is not there. But I think Poland is becoming quite an important country in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, but they're not here for this one. Big day at the White House tomorrow, Trump wrote on Sunday evening on Truth Social, never had so many European leaders at one time. My great honor to host them. According to the White House, Trump will first meet Zelensky at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on on, you guys. This is one of my pet peeves, right? Eastern Standard Time. Standard Time is what we say during the winter. During the summer, what do we say? Eastern Daylight Time. All right. And there's a 1 hour difference, so it's not easy. It's not going to be 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I suspect. I think it's going to be at Eastern Daylight Time. But anyway, the Trump will first greet Zelensky at 1 p.m. for a bilateral meeting at 2:15. He will welcome European leaders. There will be a family photo at 2:30, followed by a multilateral meeting with European leaders. The meetings follow the Alaska summit on August 15th between Trump and Putin, which failed to produce a ceasefire in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Following the summit, Trump expressed optimism, stating that both sides made some headway toward resolving the 3.5-year war. He later announced his upcoming meeting with Zelensky in Washington. And Zelensky will be coming to D.C., the Oval Office, on Monday afternoon, Trump wrote on August 16th. If all works out, we will then schedule a meeting with President Putin. Potentially millions of people's lives will be saved. And you notice that this is always President Trump's focus. And I think this is one of the differences that I see between him and people like Biden, between Clinton and Bush's as well, Obama as well. The focus is on people's lives. I don't think I remember seeing that in the other presidents. They're all about, power politics and this and that and the other thing. But President Trump just wants to stop people from dying, wants to save people's lives. Ahead of the meeting, Trump posted a series of posts on Truth Social criticizing the media for violently distorting the facts about the Alaska summit and portraying it as a failure. And I think that is, it's part of their Trump derangement syndrome. And they hate Trump more than they love America. They hate Trump more than they love peace. They hate Trump as much as they love war. And I think that this coverage illustrates that fact. It illustrates that fact. They're not saying, President Trump is in the White House. Let's see what he can do. Let's support him wherever we can, because after all, we all want peace. None of that, right? Oh yeah, he failed. All that kind of childish talk that we see on the media, and I think it's very it's very evil, is what it is. And I hope that the American voters are paying attention to this, and that they will punish the warmongers, the Trump derangement people in the next election. Big progress on Russia. Stay tuned, he said in all caps. During the Alaska summit, Putin refused to agree to a ceasefire, and Ukraine and European allies have insisted that any peace talks must take place under a ceasefire. And I think, by the way, after the meeting in Alaska, Russia attacked again, right? Let's see here. Okay, we're live. I think so. I don't see it here, but I'm pretty sure that did happen. Okay. Trump had also advocated for a ceasefire, even warning Putin of very severe consequences if he refused. However, since the Alaska summit, the U.S. president has shifted his position, arguing that the best way to end the war in Ukraine is to move directly to a peace agreement. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up, Trump wrote in the same Truth Social post announcing Zelensky's visit. So at the summit, Trump told Zelensky and European leaders that Putin demanded the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine as a condition for ending the war. In exchange, he offered to freeze the front line in the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia. Two European sources familiar with the discussions confirmed to the Epoch Times. The Donbas, which made up of Luhansk and Donetsk provinces, has been the focal point of the conflict since 2014. 2014, who was in the White House then, right? It was Obama, wasn't it? Due to its large Russian-speaking population. Currently, Moscow controls nearly all of Luhansk and roughly 70% of Donetsk. Putin, after the meeting with Trump, said he respected American efforts to end the war, but the root causes must be eliminated first. And Putin keeps talking about the root causes, right? And well, he doesn't seem to be talking about the denazification, that kind of thing. So that seems to me to be progress, although maybe he's talking about it in private, but at least publicly, not really talking about denazification. In other words, the idea that Zelensky and his cohorts in Ukraine are Nazis and they have to be removed, this kind of thing is what they were saying in the beginning of the war. They don't seem to be saying that right now. Protecting the Russian-speaking population in Crimea and southeastern Ukraine is often cited by Moscow as one of the root causes justifying the invasion. Zelensky, however, said Ukraine would reject any proposal to cede the Donbass. Well, he may not have a choice. President Trump, I think, may be saying that to Zelensky, listen, you can do this, you can cede the Donbass, or you can keep fighting. So, and you can, and the people in your country can keep dying. What do you want? It's your choice. And of course, it's a difficult choice for Zelensky because not just from a patriotic point of view, but just from a purely political point of view. Any president that cedes territory to an enemy is going to get a huge backlash from within his own country. There's going to be a pretty sizable segment of the population that's going to say, "Oh, you gave up our territory," this kind of thing. So Zelensky may be motivated by that as well. Okay, so in Truth Social on the eve of the White House meeting, Trump stated that the Ukrainian leader could bring a swift end to the war if he chooses. Zelensky can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight, Trump said. Remember how it started? No getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change, right? So we'll see how that, and then the security guarantees. We were able to win the following concession that the United States could offer Article 5-like protection, which is one of the real reasons why Ukraine wants to be in NATO. It was the first time we had ever heard the Russians agree to that. He added, Article 5 of the NATO Charter states that an attack against one member shall be considered an attack against them all. So in other words, Russia is okay if the West says, you know what, if you attack Ukraine, that'll be the same as attacking us. And one of the sort of the points that the Europeans keep bringing up is that if we don't help Ukraine beat back Russia and eliminate Russia from its territory, then the next thing Russia is going to do is they're going to come after Poland or the Baltic countries or someone else like that. They may, and he actually may go after Moldova. I can see that Moldova, especially the Transnistria region of Moldova, is kind of well, good candidate as far as someone like Putin is concerned. But we'll have to see. But at least NATO countries, Putin, whether Putin goes after NATO countries, will be a pretty big factor. All right, so here and then Zelensky is arriving with European allies, including two who have recently grown close to Trump. One is Finnish President Stubb, who formed an unexpected bond with Trump after an unofficial visit to Mar-a-Lago in March. A former member of Finland's national golf team, Stubb spent 7 hours with the president, having meals and playing a round of golf. Two leaders discussed current foreign policy issues, including Ukraine, and also Secretary General Rutte of NATO also has a strong relationship with Trump. Okay. He defended his comments describing Trump as a good friend who deserves all the praise. Yeah, so Yeah, there are some people who can't stand the idea of Trump getting any praise at all, because it's just, why is it that they hate Trump so much? And I think the thing is pretty obvious. I mean, they've hated Trump since the beginning. You remember the first they mocked him, right? First they mocked him. There was that joke during the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I think it was, where somebody got up and said, I heard that Trump is running as a Republican. That's interesting because I thought he was running as a joke. That kind of mockery was what Trump was facing in the beginning. And then what did they do? Well, they criticized him, of course, but then they actually set about doing all these intricate conspiracies, right? With John Brennan and the whole CIA apparatus, and of course with the FBI and with Clinton, with Hillary Clinton and everybody else doing everything they can together with the media to try and stop him. And to their chagrin, what they found was that the more they tried to stop him, the more popular he became. And the more popular he became, the more they tried to stop him. And the more they tried to stop him, the more popular he became. And finally, they managed to get him elected into the White House in 2016. And of course, in 2020, then they went all out with the whole creative balloting and so forth, and the creative counting and things like that, and made sure this time that he could not have a second term back in 2020. But then the Republicans, of course, came back and said, you know what, we know what you guys did, and we're not going to let you do it a second time. And so he managed to get enough votes in 2024 that it was too big to rig. And so here we are. And of course, they will always hate him. They will always hate him because he represents the American people, and they hate the American people, right? The American people, what do they? Why do they hate the American people? Because they love power. They love power, and the American people present a challenge to that power. 2016 was supposed to be Hillary's turn, right? Turn, which is a pretty cynical way of saying. In other words, that it's not up to the American people who's going to be president. It was Hillary's turn. And it was unfair, right? And I think they're still trying to say that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. I think they're still trying to say that. Even though it's been proven false, it's been debunked, it doesn't matter, they're still going to say it. Because remember, con artists, they will keep doing the con even after they've been even after they've been exposed. And this is what these people are doing. They're still doing their con even after they've been exposed. And so Trump is evil. It doesn't matter what he does. He can bring peace on earth, eternal peace on earth, and everything else. And he will still be evil to them because he challenges their power. He challenges their power. He challenges the Washington establishment. So we will see how this turns out, but President Trump really deserves our prayers. He deserves a lot of credit. As you know, I don't agree with everything that he's doing, as I've expressed here, but certainly with respect to his focus on peace, not just in Ukraine, but other places around the world as well. On his focus on peace, he deserves a great deal of credit and a great deal of praise. And I believe that he will come through. I think he will come through. This is the final week. We are in the final week of that leap month that I told you about, when evil spirit world is kind of asleep or so, or they don't know what's going on. They don't know time is passing. So I think this meeting today will be very crucial. And it may be that the European leaders, rather than siding with Zelensky against Trump, may actually help Trump to convince Zelensky to do what's necessary to stop the killing. now, and I hope that's the case. But we'll have to wait and see. The media, of course, is portraying it the other way. But, I think it's possible that's actually what's going to happen. But meanwhile, right now, Zelensky is saying this, that, hey, Russia started the war and it's up to them to end it. So Trump said that Zelensky can end this war anytime he wants. So Zelensky's response to that is, hey, Russia started this war and now it's up to them to end it, is what he's saying. Okay. And he will not cede territory to Russia. Well, we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens with that. Okay. But again, Father is going to be there, and he's going to be in that meeting, and he's going to be reaching out to the hearts of everyone in that meeting today in the White House. And I hope that they can hear Father's words, voice, his voice is speaking to them. All right, a little bit of an update on the Family Federation situation here. I think yes, I did see in one place that Yoon Young-ho, who is the former director of World Missions for Family Federation, was going to be indicted today. That seems not to have happened. I'm not sure. I'll have to check the nightly news after I end this, but it does not seem to have happened. But another thing that has happened is that Yoon Jong-no, this is another Yoon, was subpoenaed by the special counsel today. And you may wonder, wait a second, what's going on here? The former president that was being bribed, he was a Yoon, right? He was a Mr. Yoon. The Family Federation former director of World Missions who did the bribing was a Yoon. And now we have a third Yoon being subpoenaed by the special prosecution in connection to this. What's going on with the Yoons? And I looked it up, and it turns out that about 2% of the Korean population has the surname Yoon. It's the 8th most popular of Korean surnames. Korea has a limited number of traditional surnames, about 270. Korea is a very tribal society, and that may help you understand why Father said, "Okay, let's do tribal Messiah. Be a Messiah for your own tribes." And so for example, when you get a new president in, all right, when you get a new president in Korea, all the newspapers, at least this was the case when I was working for Father's paper here, would change their correspondents, the political desk correspondents in charge of the presidential palace or covering the presidential palace. And you had to have come from the same, to be the correspondent in the presidential palace, you had to have come from the same province as the president, or maybe if you even went to the same high school, that doesn't have to be same class, but same high school, or even same elementary school sometimes. You had a leg up, because then you say you're a member of the president's tribe, and you have a leg up on making connections among the staff in the presidential palace and getting stories that others cannot get. But if you're from a different part of the country, you don't have a chance. You're not going to be covering the presidential palace as long as the president is someone who's from a different part of the country than what you are. So yeah, we have the 3 Yoons now, and one is in jail, or 2 are in jail actually. The former president is in jail. The Family Federation World Missions Director, he's in jail, and not yet indicted. And in Korea, you can be arrested or you can be detained. And being detained is more serious because they can hold you for up to 30 days. Being arrested is just a couple of days, until they get their paperwork straight and they get a new warrant for your detainment. So both of the Yuns are now under detainment, which means that they have 30 days, probably. It can be shorter, but maximum 30 days. And then the guy who was subpoenaed today, I think he was simply subpoenaed as kind of a witness. Apparently, he was there when Yoon Yong-ho gave a bribe to a congressman, and so he was called in today as a witness. So anyway, the Yun tribe is causing trouble right now for True Father in the for True Father. Well, but is he causing trouble for True Father? On Sunday, the gentleman who gave the Sunday sermon at the Korean headquarters church pointed out that what we see right now is the evil judging evil. God is good, and so he does not have given receive with evil. And so he will not judge evil. That evil has to judge evil, and that's what's happening right now. In other words, the current president is he's communist, all right. He's communist. He definitely is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and he's of course right now he's acting all smiles and everything like that. But fundamentally, he's a communist. He's evil, and he is the one who is judging Park Cha-han and her minions, it appears. And so that's an example of how evil is judging evil. That was the point of the sermon yesterday, and that makes sense. That makes sense. It may actually work out that way. All right. Meanwhile, yes, I don't know what it is about the Yuns, but they are in trouble. They are in trouble. Okay. All right. Now, getting back to this whole Ukraine thing, I do want to do one more thing, and that is the China reaction to this whole thing. Remember, we had that story late last week about the guy, the Chinese scholar, who said, you know what we ought to do? Gather everybody in Beijing and hash it out there. Remember that story? China kind of, I think, does not like being on the sidelines in this situation. They would somehow like to get a toehold here because remember, they're the ones that are saying, hey, we have the model for global governance, right? So all you guys have to do is come and obey the Emperor Xi, and everything will be fine. There's stability throughout the world. And now they see President Trump running around, bringing peace in Armenia, Azerbaijan, bringing peace in Africa, DRC, DR Congo, and Rwanda. And also in his first term, he was doing, of course, the Abraham Accords with his son-in-law. And even now, I think he's trying to do something with Gaza, even now, I think. And China's a little bit upset about that, saying, hey, come on, we're the adults in this room. Why isn't anyone talking with us? But here, the Chinese spokesperson, the lady, her last name is Mao, by the way, taking the high road here, which China also tries to do, because remember, they're the adults, so they're going to take the high road. China was positive about the meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska on Friday, despite it yielding no immediate deal. Okay. And so let's see what she said. China supports all efforts conducive to the peaceful resolution of the crisis, Mao Ning told a regular press briefing on Monday morning, state media Global Times reported. We are glad to see Russia and the United States maintaining contact. Okay, well, we're fingers crossed. They are not glad to see Russia and the United States getting friendly. They are not glad at all. But anyway, of course, they're lying because, well, they're diplomats, but also because they're communists. We're glad to see Russia and the United States maintaining contact, improving relations, and promoting the political settlement process of the Ukraine crisis. Okay, yeah. And she commented on the meeting with Zelensky and European leaders. She said, we expect all parties concerned and stakeholders to take part in the peace talks process at an appropriate time and to reach as soon as possible a fair, lasting, and binding peace agreement that can be accepted by all parties. Right. Okay. All right. All right. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But of course, if things don't work out in the near term, then China's going to come on and say, "Hey, serves you right. We're not, consulting us. We're not bringing us into the picture." That's what they'll say. We're the ones that provide stability. Remember, we are stability. Stability is us. Yeah, as they mow down their protesters. No word right now on what's happening in the Chinese regime. And I think in October, they're planning on a big sort of a party conference or something like that. And we'll be watching that to see whether Xi Jinping is able to maintain his current position of power. And we'll be reporting on that, I'm sure. That'll be a couple of months. Of course, beginning of next month, which is just a couple of weeks now, there's going to be a big military march in Beijing, hosted by Xi Jinping, and he's inviting all sorts of people, world leaders around the world, world leaders to come and attend that military march. So that may be, again, a showcase of Xi Jinping's power again, right there. But remember, Xi Jinping being replaced, in my opinion, is not a good thing, because it will simply give the Communist Party the chance to say, "Hey, look, we're able to reform ourselves. When our leader does something bad, then we're able to replace him and bring in a new guy. So you got to keep us in power." And unfortunately, many people will buy that. So I think let's not be focusing on the downfall of Xi Jinping. Rather than that, let's be focusing on the downfall of the Chinese Communist Party regime as a whole, just as the Soviet Communist Party fell, so also the Chinese Communist Party must also fall. But we'll see how that works out. Okay. All righty then. Let's see what else is going on. Okay, let's go to Newsmax. See what's doing there. Let me share this with you. Okay. Zelensky, Russia cynically attacking ahead of talks. Okay, well, this is what I was afraid of, is that Russia is actually continues to bomb Ukraine. Zelensky said on Monday that Russia had carried out cynical strikes on Ukraine, including on an Azerbaijani-owned oil facility ahead of his planned leaked talks in Washington with President Donald Trump. So people are continuing to die. That's terrible. Trump tells Ukraine to give up on NATO and Crimea, right? Let's see. Of course, another reason for the Europeans to be there is to sort of make a show of force or a show of unity towards Putin. I think that's an important purpose of this meeting as well. And Secretary of State Rubio, Trump the only one that can bring Putin to peace. And that's true, isn't it? I mean, Biden didn't do anything like this when he was president. He could have, right? He could have. Clinton, and Obama actually allowed Russia to take over Crimea and didn't do anything about it. And Hillary Clinton, could she be doing this kind of thing? No, absolutely not. So I think Rubio is correct that Trump is the only one that is able to bring peace in this situation. And his critics hate it. They hate it. I hate that is in fact the case. Mike Pence, I fully support Trump's DC actions. Well, that's interesting because Pence has been saying some other stuff that's critical of Trump. But also, Maureen Dowd, who is a leftist columnist, is also supporting President Trump's actions in DC. Okay. 3 states sending hundreds of Guard troops to DC, right? Canada praises Trump on Ukrainian guarantees. Wow, even Canada. what what are the Trump derangement people going to do? Even Canada is now praising Trump on Ukraine. Okay. Right, yeah, this security breach. Somebody who I'm sure is no longer an employee of the government left 8 pages of State Department documents on a printer at a hotel in Anchorage, and apparently the damages were at least as being portrayed as being insignificant. But of course, NPR is a leftist organization. They're trying to play it up. The State Department is trying to play it down, and it looks like it's not such a big thing. But come on, you guys, when you use the printer, check, check. Don't leave the originals there. Okay, Wesley Clark, Putin's Russian expansion must end. Wesley Clark was who was he? He was the NATO commander under Clinton, maybe, I think. But anyway, he's kind of a globalist, I think, or maybe he was a Bushite. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, so anyway, he was former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. Yeah, okay. Right. He said it was the greatest tragedy of the 20th century. President Putin, since he's been in office, has wanted to restore the Soviet Union. He said it was the greatest tragedy of the 20th century, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and he's worked methodically, patiently, with deliberate violence to accomplish this, in order to recreate the Soviet Empire, in other words. And U.S. policy over several administrations has failed to stop Putin's expansionist efforts. When they invaded Crimea in 2014, the United States counseled Ukraine to give up Crimea so we wouldn't provoke Putin, he said. In 2014, all right, that was Obama. There's a long track record of not being able to stand up to Putin. The key issue raised during the Trump-Putin discussions was the possibility of security guarantees for Ukraine, and Clark questioned the weight of such assurances. When President Trump says he will consider security guarantees, that's what he means. There's no promise of a security guarantee. And if there is, we don't know what that means, Clark said. He noted that in 1994, the United States signed the Budapest Memorandum. It didn't say guarantee. It said, we will assure the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We failed in that. We didn't assure it. Clark added that Ukraine faces difficult choices, particularly regarding the contested Donetsk region. Those positions have been defended now for 11 years successfully, he said. There is nothing between those positions until you get back to the river, 100 and some odd miles to the west. That would be the Donetsk River, I think. And you're in Kiev at that point, or no, the Dnieper River, I'm sorry, the Dnieper River, I guess it is, the Dnipropetrovsk. He also said Putin's objectives are not limited to Ukraine. He wants all of Ukraine, wants the Baltics, wants to change the alignment of Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, maybe finish off Georgia and Moldova. These are big aims, and he gets them step by step, Clark said. He warned that Russia will likely use negotiations to push for sanctions relief and economic openings unless we demand the demobilization of the Russian military and the end of this big military industrial buildup. What we're doing is setting the stage for the next wave of Russian expansion into Europe. Well, this is a demobilization of the Russian military is kind of a new thing, isn't it? We haven't really seen this. And that would be like the demobilization of the German military after World War II, or the Japanese military after World War II. And that's the kind of thing that only happens when a country has lost a war. If you're gonna tell someone that you have to demobilize their military. But for Russia to be in that kind of a position, there would have to have been some kind of a nuclear exchange, I would imagine. I don't see how Russia would agree to a demobilization of its military unless it had already been defeated in a nuclear war. So Wesley Clark is talking about that kind of situation. So he's talking about a nuclear war. And Clark also said Ukraine President Zelensky is under significant pressure as peace talks continue. It's certainly not the move that Ukraine wants, but it's probably going to be very hard for Zelensky to resist this. If President Trump says you've got to do this, and here's my security guarantee, then you're looking at a real-time give up, he said, noting that more than 200,000 people could be displaced if Ukraine concedes territory. The Ukrainian military is determined to fight to protect its sovereignty, Clark added. They understand that when Putin rolls this forward, it's not just a conquest of territory, it's the end of Ukraine as a nation, into the culture, the language, the traditions, and obviously the freedom to join and be associated with the West. Clark said negotiations could pause the conflict, but would not end Putin's broader ambitions. It's possible to get a temporary cessation of fighting with the right concessions. Mr. Putin needs a breathing spell. He wants the end of sanctions, but as long as he's trying to neutralize Ukraine and deprive it of its means to defend itself, you can see the next step. Okay, so that's his opinion there. Well, we'll see what happens here. That's not Wesley Clark. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. All right. Deportation totals show enforcement works, and Putin not a guy to trust. Okay. So a chance for a quick resolution. Going to war without Putin at the table. Hypocrite. Dick Morris, California voters will reject the redistricting, he says. Okay, that's the whole thing with Texas and California. And Zelensky lacks a mandate to cede land. Yeah, so yeah, he may be in political trouble, yeah, if he does that. But as Clark said, he may have no choice. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we're looking at Gaza. We're kind of turning away from Gaza for the time being. I'm sure that will be probably that will be the next big issue, unless China becomes the next big issue after Russia and Ukraine. We're right now focusing mainly on Ukraine. Iran to continue talks with IAEA after curbing access. Satellites hacked. Space is a new battlefield. Okay. All right. China said on Monday it stands ready to work for peaceful unification with Taiwan. Said on Monday it stands ready to work against the greatest effort for work with the greatest effort for peaceful reunification with Taiwan, its foreign ministry said on Monday, responding to interview comments made by President Trump. Okay, well, yeah, right. Peaceful unification. Yeah, but China, of course, the CCP has been infiltrating all aspects of Taiwan society, and they've been pretty successful so far. But this thing about security guarantees, it could mean U.S. troops on the ground or somebody's troops on the ground, right? German or French. British or U.S. troops on the ground. So there's still a possibility that American troops will be called on to fight Russian troops in Ukraine. And that's not a good thing to have U.S. and Russia going to war in Ukraine. But that, if we're talking about security guarantees, that assumes that that is a possibility, doesn't it? How else are you going to guarantee security? Security guarantee means that, hey, you know what? If you're attacked, then I'll be there and I'll go there and I'll fight with you. And when they talk about the Article 5 like guarantee for Ukraine, that's exactly what they're talking about. Right now, if Russia were to invade France, the NATO treaty says that the US has to go to France and fight Russia in France. Or Germany, the same thing. And Germany also has to fight Russia and France. So if they're going to give Ukraine that same type of guarantee, that raises the possibility of U.S. troops, American troops in Ukraine, fighting Russian troops and North Korean troops. So we're still not out of the woods. In fact, we've still got a long ways to go to get out of the woods. And depending on how things go, it could actually bring about an even worse situation, where it's not just Ukraine versus Russia and North Korea, but Russia versus U.S., China, or U.S., France, and Germany, and et cetera, and British and UK, and so forth and so on. So still need a lot of prayer going on here, right? And if Wesley Clark is correct about Putin wanting to rebuild the Soviet empire, then that he has to be dissuaded from that in some way. And I'm not convinced that that is the case. I know a lot of people have been saying this, but especially it's the sort of the globalists and the warmongers, it seems to have been saying this. So we'll have to see whether Putin really wants that. And if he goes after Moldova, for example, especially the Russian-speaking area, the Transnistria, which is kind of between Ukraine and Moldova, that might be a kind of a test that would show that this is exactly what Putin is trying to do, because Moldova used to be a part of the Soviet Empire. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Well, but Father is working, I'm sure, and we will see what he is up to, what he is able to do. What is this here? Bosnian Serb claims. What is this? This is an interesting headline. I'm not sure what it means. Bosnian Serb Dodik claims Biden allies moved to oust him before Trump meeting. Bosnian Serb leader addresses the media after a visit of the University of East Sarajevo. Okay. In a candid, wide-ranging interview, President Dodik alleged that Biden allies were orchestrating his removal before he can communicate directly with Donald Trump, whom he praises as the savior of our civilization. Well, okay. I'm not sure I'm interested in that. Okay. All right. China tariff delay does little to save the holidays. Well, as someone who has always objected to the commercialization of Christmas, I would say that this is not a bad thing. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Is Christmas going to be ruined because we don't have these blow up Grinches? Yeah. Look at this lady. U.S. shoppers looking for fake Christmas trees and holiday decor this year will have fewer choices and face higher prices well, we may just have to worship Jesus. No choice. No choice but to worship Jesus. Oh, boo-hoo. Okay. All right. Uh, okay, let's see. All right, so let's see what's going on in Breitbart territory. This Comey thing is really crazy. You can read it if you like. And people send money to California inmate who beat up alleged child killer's stepmom. Okay, and uh, again, mustard gas on our democracy. All sorts of metaphors people going in. And Marco Rubio saying Ukraine and Russia conflict is not our war. But if we give security guarantees, then it's going to become our war. That's the problem. Zelensky declares it impossible for Ukraine to give up territory to Russia. Well, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It happens all the time. And Marlowe says that the left's reaction to Trump-Putin summit reveals their thirst for nuclear war. Unfortunately, that may be the truth. Okay. So they're still trying to fight President Trump, but they keep losing. They keep losing. Yes. So I think this week is going to be pretty pivotal in many respects for the situation in Ukraine. And something needs to be done to make sure that Wesley Clark's predictions don't come about. Putin. What would happen if Putin is replaced? If he somehow, one way or another, is removed from the stage of world politics, one way or another, and is replaced by someone else, will the next person be just as bad? Or, I don't know. It depends. It depends on what the Russian people want to do, and if the Russian people are able to express their desire and are able to express their desire for peace. Let's hope that can also come about. Yeah. That there is no sort of attempt to recreate the Soviet Empire, but rather that there will be a true desire for peace. This week, I think, will be an important week in that for us to move in that direction. All right, we'll see what happens. Okay. All right, let's pray that President Trump can have God's wisdom, and that also during today's meetings at the White House, and that also Zelensky can also understand what he needs to do, what is best for his people's interests, how to stop the killing. Obviously, stopping the killing is in the interest of the Ukrainian people. But also this security guarantee thing, I'm a little bit worried about how that's going to play out. Well, let's pray that that will not play out in a way that will have U.S. troops in Ukraine fighting Russian troops there in the future. All right. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless, Godspeed. May His